Victoria Emerton, and today I'm delighted to be joined by John Dorward, Strategic Sales Lead for Healthcare UK and Ireland at Honeywell Building Automation. Honeywell Building Automation will be exhibiting at Healthcare Estates alongside Trend on stand number B28 at the event on the 21st and 22nd of October. John, thanks very much for joining me and welcome to this podcast.
Thank you.
So where do you see are the biggest trends currently within healthcare? That's a big question.
It's a huge question, but I think there's a huge shadow on the horizon that we're all aware of, which is the new hospital programme. And really that seems to be the one thing that the whole country, the whole industry is really looking towards as the biggest game changer that we're going to have within the healthcare vertical. It's probably a once in a lifetime generation for the number of hospitals that are being planned to be built. And it really is something that we as suppliers need to really support the NHS with. So that's really one of the biggest trends going on. But alongside that, there's lots of other areas where there needs to be investment and consideration within the industry. Things like digital transformation, we hear about that a lot. And we also hear about a lot of conversations around artificial intelligence and machine learning. So really, alongside digital transformation, it's how we use the technology that's open to us, alongside things like artificial intelligence and machine learning, to really start to create a transformation journey into the digital age for the healthcare environment. And it's very easy to say that digital is just artificial intelligence, or it's having something on a tablet or data streams, but really it has to go beyond that, and really people need to understand what digital transformation means to them. So we're really focusing on helping and supporting the industry within that. And the other areas as well, when we're talking about going back to the new hospital programme, we're also aware that as part of this, there's also an issue short term with regards to how we can support the NHS with things like operations, with various treatments, even bed spaces. So a lot of private hospitals are supplementing in this as well. So again, there is a trend now where a lot of private hospitals are looking to invest in their infrastructure and in their staff to be able to support the wider healthcare environment and the needs of the NHS. There's also key areas around the use of data. So again, we're talking about digital transformation, we're talking about information to be able to make decisions about, who should be going for an operation when. And it's really how we link patient, clinical and built data to make it work for us in a healthcare environment, to start to be able to make informed decision making through all the private healthcare and also the NHS, so that we are focusing on what needs to be done to provide the best form of outcome. And again, a couple of other points that's worth looking at as well within the trends is with the new hospital programme, the move towards single patient rooms. Now, this is also similar to what happens within private hospitals, but there's also an understanding as to what that might mean for staff, for the patients, how we can make those spaces safer. I always say that the difference between hospitality and hospital is 3 letters, but sometimes how we treat people in a hospital bed compared to in a hotel room is chalk and cheese. So we need to start, upping our game really, to start looking at, what single patient rooms could look like and how we make that patient experience really something that helps to drive their recovery process and their stay in hospital, to make it as well as they can. Again, we talk about the investment that goes into healthcare, and the need to do more operations, to free up more bed space, to get more treatments done. And really the big thing that can affect that as well is around staff retention and the number of people that work within the healthcare vertical, and also how well they are in terms of being able to do their job and to turn up for work. So we know that over the COVID period, if we go back that far, the number of full-time equivalent days that were lost within the NHS alone was around 2.2, 2.3 million a month, which is huge numbers. Again, now after COVID, it's looking around 1.4 million days are lost, but that's still a lot. If we were able to make staff feel better when they go to work, not pick up illnesses when they're in there, and we are able to get better staff retention, then even a 10% saving on those number of days could have a massive impact on how people are treated within hospitals and within healthcare to get well, better and quicker. And that's what we all want to do. And again, when we talk about all the things that we're doing and the technology that's in there, I would say that the last big trend that's coming in is an awareness around cybersecurity and cyber attacks. So with the more technology, there's more risk that's being opened up to all the different solutions that are going in there. There's some, backdoor entrances now where people are trying to get in there. And of course, data is very, very sensitive when it starts talking about patient data. So again, one of the things that we do see a lot of is investment in cybersecurity and making sure that a lot of the data is locked down and more secure within a hospital environment.
Yeah, the new hospital program's kind of riding a curve of new technology. The opportunities at this point in time when new hospitals are being planned are immense, aren't they? But they bring with them, as you say, a new set of challenges, particularly in cybersecurity. So a huge amount to think about. So how do you define smart hospitals? That's a buzzword that's been around for a while now.
Yeah, smart hospitals is very, very interesting because it's a buzzword. We've talked about artificial intelligence, AI, and again that's another buzzword. But what is it when we start to scrape below the surface? And I don't believe there's any one answer as to what a smart hospital is. From my perspective, what I would say is that it's around data, but not about data being there for data's sake, but what we actually do with that data and how we make it connect with all the other pieces of data. So one of the things we speak about when we're talking about the new hospital program, and we talk about getting patients into hospital and getting them out of hospital as quickly as possible, and as well as possible, is looking at all those different data streams between the patient requirements, the clinical data, and also the built environment data. And probably one of the best examples of that is if we think about accident and emergency departments, and we've all had an experience of long waiting lists when we go in there. We don't necessarily want to be there. We're there because there's an urgent need. But if you think of, Saturday night when everybody's been out and we've all been enjoying ourselves and we let our hair down a little bit and we perhaps have a trip over an ankle, or we bang our head because we're a bit more relaxed around things. Those types of nights are busy for the NHS and for hospitals. When you compare that to perhaps maybe a Monday or a Tuesday morning when we don't have as much people maybe being out and about and mixing and things like that. So one of the big things that we need to do is look at what that data could help us to do. So it's if you look at something like accident and emergency, and we call this maybe a smart space. What do we mean by smart space? Well, we'll take for example the occupancy. So again, we look at busy periods. Now the busy periods could be dependent on weather. So it might be to do with a heat wave that we have and high temperatures, dehydration, people maybe being out, enjoying themselves more, so they have more of an impact on their health. It may be that the roads are wet, so heavy rainfall, flash floods. So we might have some higher levels of traffic accidents. So when we look at that, what are all the different parameters that could dictate how busy an accident and emergency space could be? And what we need to do is take all that data and use that to help the hospitals to run things more efficiently, to be better, and to then free up space in other areas that could then help to supplement the treatment of patients. So take for example, there's a traffic accident in an area. and an accident and emergency department is overwhelmed, if you know about that, then you can start to reroute patients to another hospital nearby that could then have the capacity to start looking at people and being able to treat them, and then reducing the waiting times. And then that would have a less of a knock-on effect to people who are just dropping in as a result of normal accidents that they pick up. Again, talking about, occupancy, and we talk about the need for, reducing energy consumption and everything else as well. Why would we want to have the same number of lights on, or the same, ventilation strategy in there if you have 2 or 3 people in an accident and emergency waiting area, as opposed to 40 people in there? So again, all these different things will have an impact, but it's how we link all that data together to make it useful for the staff in those hospitals to make critical decisions. And again, we can expand this into other, areas as well, where we have, things like critical care, for example, operating rooms. So again, how we can maximize the patient throughput within operating, space, by, utilizing things like monitoring infections that are picked up within there. That would have a knock-on effect about how much medication they might need. It would definitely have a knock-on effect with regards to waiting times for operations. And again, if an operating room is not in use, we could look at how we could reduce energy consumption when they're not being utilized. So it's really a case of taking all these different, data pieces, as I said, from, patient requirements, from the clinical aspect, and from the built environment, to then start working together and seeing exactly if, A happened and C happened, what would it mean for B? And we can then start to make smart decisions that would then make that hospital smart in terms of what it's trying to achieve for that. And again, even to the point where, we talk about, AI and machine learning, is within all this whole data piece, we can then start to use this AI and analytics to then start to make other, key decisions, such as, predictive maintenance tasks, so that again, if you're looking at an operating room, and that it needs to have something done within that, you can then have that predicted that's going to be taking place in 2 weeks' time. It needs to be done. Therefore, let's get everything coordinated for 2 weeks' time, and it minimizes the downtime linked to that key, area within a hospital. If we then also link, these maintenance tasks to CAFM systems, we link it through to procurement of parts that they need to be able to do this maintenance schedule, then what we're able to do is also reduce the level of stock holding that hospitals have, and thereby it reduces that buildup of cost that's unnecessary. So there's lots of areas where we can be smart, but the key thing with that is really how we utilize the data within the healthcare environment.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You can have reams and reams of data, but it's only useful if you know how to harness what it's telling you, and then be able to action those messages on all fronts: building maintenance, patient care, patient movement, facility management. So really exciting times ahead. So what are the biggest risks, do you think, to the delivery of the new hospital programme? That's the key, all these amazing new smart hospitals. What's going to be cause issues with them coming to fruition?
As we said right at the very start, we were talking about this being a big trend within the healthcare vertical, and once in a generation opportunity to get things right. And the biggest concern with that, and we hear it all the time on the news, is the budgets, and taxation and the risk to public expenditure. And that really is one of the biggest fears, is that we make a commitment to deliver a large number of hospitals, and we struggle to finance it, and not just finance in terms of the investment in the buildings, but also in the people as well that we need to have in those hospitals to be able to run them, to be able to treat patients. So there's a big risk around that aspect of it. And we've already seen that we've now had the number of hospitals set out into different waves. So we've got wave 1, 2, and 3. It's scaled back. Some of them aren't going ahead. So the danger is that we lose the appetite based on budget, when actually, we need to be thinking about, what it actually means longer term, and what that investment could leave us with. So that's really one of the big risks. And I think if we get beyond the budget risk, then what we need to look at is how we manage that budget. So, again, I spoke about there about, that this being an investment, and what we seem to always struggle with is when we talk about a new hospital, the first thing somebody will say is, well, how much is it going to cost? Nobody turns around and says, how much is the investment in the new hospital? How much is the investment in making patients better? What is the investment in upskilling our staff to be able to deliver the level of care that we need? And so we really need to start thinking about what we put into the hospital in terms of solutions, and that these propositions that we put forward and these solutions that we put forward have some kind of independent, evidence-backed value proposition that enables people to see where the true value lies, so that it is seen as an investment and not as a cost. Because as soon as we see it as a cost, it then starts to become a race to the bottom in terms of getting a hospital built. And that really is the one big missed opportunity that we could have, and the biggest risk is that what we do is we start to reduce what we're putting into the hospitals just to try and hit a budget. Whereas when we start looking at things like life cycle costs and the value that sits within that, then we can actually start to say, well, actually, the investment piece up front is X, but the return on investment through the life cycle costs and the value in terms of being able to treat patients more efficiently, to have more staff, readily available to do treatments, is exponential to that initial investment. So we really need to help everybody understand what that looks like, what that value piece is, and really when we start to understand that value, it's again going back to things like, but what do we do with the data? So again, when we're talking about the data element, it's making sure that all the data is interoperable, that the data can, work with other technologies that are in the hospital to make it smart, to make all those decisions, so that, okay, we focus on technology and we want it to be, at the leading edge or cutting edge of technology, but we don't want it to be siloed off where we can't use the data that comes from there to then start having an impact on all the other data streams that could lead to all those really good decision making. And again, we need the data to be controlled and to be owned by the NHS, because they know what they need the data for and how that data can really impact on their staff, the patient treatments and all that sort of level. So we really need to make sure that we get everybody talking together on that. And finally, with all that technology that's getting built into the new hospitals, and we call it smart hospitals or whatever terminology we want to do, we also then need the NHS to start realizing that the new technology can have an impact on the current level of HTM guidelines that we have. And really, we need to work with them to say, well, actually, if we have better technology, it can then mean that we don't have to have so many airflow exchanges within an operating room, because we know that it can provide the level of fresh air that's required, rather than just saying, this is what we require, and regardless what the technology is, we will always stick to that. So there's a real need between industry and the NHS and other healthcare organisations to work together to start seeing how that technology and the data and all that integration piece can start to really improve how we run our hospitals as well.
Well, it's an ongoing journey, isn't it? Technology is going to continue to evolve. So the point of installation is not the end point within a building. Things will evolve and improve, I imagine. So industry's full of experts with lots of products and gadgets that can help in healthcare. What can industry do better to support healthcare over the next few decades, do you think?
We need to we need to listen and learn from our experiences. We shouldn't just say that we are going to create take the new hospital program. We're going to create a new hospital today, and we know that, as I said, the different waves that we have are going to be over the next 10, 15 years. So a new hospital that's built today should not be the same as a new hospital that's built in 15 years' time. So one of the things that we need to do is to learn from that build. We need to understand the successes within there, but also areas where we need to make improvement. So we need to start, talking with the decision makers within healthcare to see what it is that's important to them, and start to have a real collaborative approach to how we can, get the voice of the customer, as it were, to then say, this is really, really good. However, if you had done this, it would have saved us an additional 10% of our time, or it would have reduced our costs by 20%. And we don't always know that as industry providers, because we look at our solutions and we say, right, okay, what's the next part of the roadmap for our technology? And we look to develop that and design it and make all that R&D investment, but we don't necessarily always pick up right at the very start what it is that we've maybe missed from previous incarnations of our solutions. So one of the things is we need to do that listening of that. And again, when we talk about the roadmaps, it's also being open with our healthcare teams and the vertical and the decision makers within healthcare to say, this is our technology roadmap. So when you again invest in technology, rather than it being a cost to you, but we invest in it, what is the roadmap for that technology over the next 15, 20, 30 years? Because if you invest in something today, we want it to be something that we can utilize and rely on in 30 to 40 to 50 years time as well. Now, we don't say that, for example, if you take a phone, you update the software every so often, or you get a latest version out that maybe has an enhancement to it, but basically you can still use the phone to make phone calls. So it still has its purpose from day one, even if you make improvements over the life cycle. So again, by sharing that roadmap, we can then allow hospitals and healthcare environments to then start to understand and make decisions as to where they can then start to filter in investment into that technology alongside the roadmap. So they say, well, in 8 years' time or 10 years' time, we want to move on to the next version of this, and that will give us an additional boost in productivity or energy reduction or whatever it might be. But they can see that, and what sometimes we're very bad of is actually explaining or showcasing what it is that we're actually wanting to do, because we're scared that if something gets out into the open, then our competition will maybe pick up on that and use that to their own advantage and things. But we have to be adult about this opportunity with healthcare. There's a lot of investment going into it now, and we need to be more open about what we actually are providing them with. And I would say that road mapping is really, really critical, because you can start to see where that investment will take you, and where future bits of investment will be needed in order to get there. Because investment will happen, but it has to be happening at the right time, not constantly investing every 2 or 3 years just because they have to. So I think that's really, really important that we start to share all that as well. And again, with that as well, we need to look at things about how we get our solutions to market better. So again, we need to look at things about the speed of taking it to market. So again, if there's something that's really critical, that we can jump on that, because we're using a lot of the right bits of information that can make them get ahead or keep ahead of where we need to be. Perfect example of that is when you look at the COVID vaccination, and you saw how quickly that came to market for them. Now, if there's something that would enable healthcare to treat their patients better, that is maybe things like a sensor that could pick up things like damp or mold within an environment that could have a massive impact on respiratory requirements, then let's jump on that and let's find a solution for that and start making improvements earlier in the process as well. So really, I would say that the biggest thing that we can do is to talk, to be more collaborative, to listen to what the needs are of the experts within healthcare, and then start to adopt those within what we are doing and build it into a roadmap for our solutions, so that we can start to make sure, again, going back to this whole very point, is that everything they do is seen as an investment and not a cost. And if we run that golden thread throughout the whole of what we've spoken about today, it's really about the investment in the new hospital program. It's an investment. We're not, we may say, how much is it costing us, but actually we talk about the investment in the new hospital program. We also look at things such as the investment in data, so making hospitals smart. We're investing in lots of technology to give us data, but we have to make it work. We then talk about other elements where we're talking about the risk to the new hospital program. Well, if we invest correctly in all the right technologies at the right stage of design, that will become an investment. It won't then become a cost further down the line, where we then decide that something does need to go in, it's been missed, and then it becomes an addition to the project. So really, that's the big thing, is making sure that what we do within the healthcare is seen as investment, and not as a cost. And again, I'm very happy to talk to people about that, because I don't like spending the NHS or healthcare money, because it comes out of our pockets ultimately. So we need to make sure that what is spent wisely, and as I say, is seen as that big investment piece, not as a cost.
And communication's key, isn't it? Industry needs to talk to healthcare and vice versa. What can we do for you? What do we need you to do for us? And coming to something like Healthcare Estates is the perfect opportunity for those two groups to get together, share ideas, learn, talk about the problems they're having, how they can be solved. So we're delighted to have Honeywell Building Automation at the event. So thank you so much for joining me today, John. It's been really interesting, and lots of big conversations to be had at the event in October, I think. So yes, just to remind everyone, Honeywell Building Automation will be on stands B28 alongside Trend. The conference programme is live, both the conference and the exhibition theatre programmes, and registration is also open at www.healthcare-estates.com. Thanks again for your time today, John. I look forward to meeting you in person in Manchester, and we'll see everybody else on this podcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you.